Okay, so welcome to this chat format. We have Davy from Indy Truck, Indy Truck Davy, actually. So I just want to have a chat with Davy tonight and ask him a few questions about himself and about Scottish independence and the SNP. So, Davy, if you don't mind telling me a little bit about yourself and how you got involved in the independence movement.
My wife and I have been campaigning before 2012. We campaigned against the bedroom tax. We campaigned for members of CND. So we're quite seasoned campaigners. When 2012 got in, we were also pro-independence SNP voters. And when 2012 came around and the campaign kicked off, then a group of us who'd already been established as friends as campaigners got weighed into the independence debate. And we set up online forums. Myself and my friend David Millian, we set up 178 online forums. And we networked them through the Yes groups. We set up debate forums. We set groups for each interest, each group's interests, like socialist groups and things like that. And we just made the Facebook into a huge platform. And that's how basically we get involved in, Sarah and I get involved in the Yes campaign. Then, of course, we had the leaflet campaign, we had marches and things like that. So we've been involved in campaigning, political campaigns for many years now, Max.
So can I ask, like, what would be some of the misconceptions people have about independence itself? Some of the misunderstandings people have surrounding independence, maybe the movement itself and the people involved in the independence movement.
I think what surprised most of the world, Max, when it came to Scottish independence was most nationalist movements are blood and soil and pretty gritty. And let's face it, nationalism has got a bad name. But I mean, there's been studies done on the 2012 to 2014 campaign on Scottish nationalism, where it's been branded as civic nationalism, where it's got nothing to do with the land, the soil, the claim of right. It's more to do with good governance and the people who live here having control of what happens to our lives, our economy, our country. So I think it took the world by storm, the idea that we were only right-wing nutters. When we look at British nationalism or English nationalism, they have that tint of the right wing about them. Whereas Scottish nationalism is as I say, it's a civic nationalism, and it seems to be a left wing. It seems to be a social cause, and it's about correcting social wrongs. And hopefully, when we get there, we will start to set up a country where well-being of the people comes before the well-being of the economy. If the economy doesn't work for the people, then the economy doesn't work. And at the moment, worldwide, the economies don't work for the people. They work for the select elite or a wealthy elite. The idea, if we have a look at Finland and New Zealand, they're also trying to move towards a well-being economy. Finland's progress has been very well documented. 3 female presidents or prime ministers, whatever they call them there. Universal basic income. Homelessness is a choice, because if you're homeless and you approach the state, they will build you a home if they can't find you one elsewhere. So the idea is to build a society that's inclusive and fair to all. And I think that shocked the world, because Scottish nationalism just didn't fit the normal nationalist movement. I mean, you could say that the Nazi party was a nationalist movement, even though they called themselves socialists, although they took it a wee bit further with their Aryan idea, white supremacy. But Scottish nationalism doesn't work that way.
So would it be fair to say that an independent Scotland would emulate some of the policies of the SNP at the moment?
I'm not sure that the SNP will survive very long after independence, to be honest with you, Max. One of the greatest things about the SNP over the last 20 years, as it's moved to the centre left, is that there's been a lot of balance in the SNP, because the SNP is a white church. There is the right wing in the SNP, and we have Tories in the SNP. Ian Blackford, a perfect example, the Westminster leader. He's as Tory as you get.
Wow.
But because we have a centre and left of centre all in the movement, then in the party, when it comes to sitting down and thrashing out policy, then generally they land on the centre ground, because you've got the left falling one way and the right falling the other way, and when consensus comes, then you get sensible policy. So, but to be honest with you, I don't think the SNP will be around. I think it will splinter after about 10 years of independence, into its natural, and each into their natural groups.
So, like, related to the SNP in a sense, or related more to independence, there are some common arguments. What are some of the common arguments that the opponents, so the Unionists, you could describe? What are their strongest arguments against independence? I know you don't support the Union, you support independence, but from their point of view, what are some of the strongest arguments that they have put forward?
Currency and the economy. That is the two strongest arguments they put forward. They have convinced the people of Scotland that we would run our economy the same way that they do, and that we would make the same mistakes that they repeatedly make, as they have done down through the centuries. Because the same people have been running the place down there down through the centuries. There is a political elite, which is part of that elite. I mean, if you have a look at the civil service, for example, Max, every single department has a Knight of the Realm running the department.
So very, very representative of the people.
Yes, but it's no representative of the people. The state serves the elite. It always has in the UK. We wouldn't do that here in Scotland, for a start. There are other things that we wouldn't do with our economy either. We wouldn't make money on weapons of mass destruction, right? We certainly wouldn't be giving away oil and gas free. We would be charging for it. We would have a proper tax regime in place. We know loopholes. And one of the arguments that beat us on the economy was they convinced the people of Scotland that everything would be the way it is. Even though people have been commissioned to write new tax codes, people have been commissioned to look at a constitution and things like that, the people of Scotland didn't get to hear these arguments. They were not put forward because the mainstream media controlled the narrative, Max.
Sure.
The mainstream media in the UK animal, and it's owned by 5 members of the elite.
As always the case, yes.
So, and the other one was currency. Currency was a fallacy, of course. Scotland already has a currency. There is no such thing as the British pound. There's no such thing as the English pound. There's no such thing as the Scottish pound. The sterling currency zone has 15 currencies. They're all called the pound, with the exception of Jamaica, probably. I think it's a dollar, isn't it? So, and when you look at it, you've got the Gibraltar pound, you've got the Manx pound,
Northern Ireland pound,
Northern Irish pound, you've got the Scottish pound, you've got the Gibraltar pound, and they all have different banknotes for a very specific reason, so that the Bank of England knows who to credit that to, and so the Bank of England knows how much of these notes are in circulation. Right? Now, the Bank of England operates something called a currency zone, where the currencies can fluctuate but can never go lower than the Bank of England base rate. It was the mistake that was made with the euro when they made it a currency union as opposed to a currency zone. It meant that the smaller nations within the euro suffered because their currency couldn't fluctuate a bit in order to compensate for the weaker or stronger economies. Right?
Yes.
So the currency zone has been very successful, the sterling zone, because it's underpinned by a Bank of England base rate, but the currencies can rise but never go below. So economies can fluctuate and prosper. So it's been a very stable thing, whereas we know the euro has never really been stable. You know, there's always been problems within the euro that's had to be compensated for by the European Central Bank. I mean, Greece being a great example of it. So currency, it was always a fallacy. Scotland has its own currency. What Scotland really needs is a central bank. You can, of course, change the banknotes, but there's no need to. The Royal Bank of Scotland, the Bank of Scotland, and the Clydesdale Bank to continue printing their banknotes the same way the Bank of England licensed them to print bank. Currency was a fallacy. It was a lie. It was never an issue. Ever an issue. One of the other things that people didn't understand is that the negotiations, the divorce wouldn't be carried out by the UK and Scotland negotiating between each other. The Vienna Convention and the Vienna Accords was set up in the 60s, and it's to manage the breakup of larger states. The Balkans being a great example, the Czechoslovakia, and Britain doing into Slovakia and the Czech Republic, the Belgian divorce, all used the Vienna Conventions. Now, I've seen some arguments that say the Vienna Conventions don't apply to anything pre-1980. It's rubbish. It was agreed when these conventions were put in place, and you can Google this stuff, it's all there to be seen. In July 27, 1976, they were late to the party. The conventions and the accords came into international play in 1969. So you don't handle the divorce yourself. You invoke the Vienna Convention and the Vienna Accords, kick in, and the international lawyers do it the way they did with the Czech Republic, Czechoslovakia, breaking it into the Czech Republic and Slovakia. Currency wasn't an issue. Setting up central banks wasn't an issue. Division of assets wasn't an issue. It was fairly done by the international lawyers. And it was overseen by the international community.
Yeah, I'm off the... Sorry, go on, finish.
And that's the way we have to go with it, because the UK is a signatory. During the what's called the transition period, we will still be a member of the UK, and we'll be entitled to invoke any treaty that the UK is signatory to.
Okay. No, I was just going to say, I think most of these problems are more political than technical. Would you agree?
Yes, very political and no technical. As I say, the currency one was a fallacy. And the currency, there was no even any need for there to be an issue, because we could decide in the sterling zone, and we could stay in the sterling zone, and it wouldn't really make that much of an impact. You have to give up a certain amount of sovereignty, of course, and monetary policy would still be run by the Bank of England. But as I've said, the UK government don't own the Bank of England. They only have a 20% stake in it. The Bank of England's a privately owned bank. And you can go back to its history to when it was set up, and you can actually find out who two of the stakeholders are. But there were seven stakeholders. I believe there were 25 stakeholders. But all that information is publicly available, and it's there on the Bank of England website. Including the amount of currencies that's in it, how the zone operates, and what every banknote looks like. The Bank of England don't keep that sort of thing secret. It's on their website.
Sure. Okay, that's really interesting. I need to have a look into it, because it sounds really... It's something that's not publicly, it's not something that we talk about a lot, and it is something that people should, especially the people in Scotland, should know about. I'd just like to move on to the referendum. So there's an idea that next year the SNP will win a majority, and they'll push for a second referendum. But before we get to the actual referendum itself, I just want to ask a question. So let's say in a scenario the yes vote win the referendum, and Scotland gains its independence. What sort of role do you expect for Unionists and like the Labour Party or the Conservative Party that exists now in Scotland? What is their role in a future independent Scotland?
Well, the first thing that will happen is they will be dispelled as political parties. They will be disbanded, as political parties because they're not registered as Scottish political parties. So there would have to be a split from Labour in England and the rest of the UK. There has to be a split from the Conservatives and the rest of the UK because we would then have our own electoral commission, our own electoral laws, and we would have to have Scottish political parties. At the moment, there are only, I think there are 17 registered Scottish parties, but there are only 2 that are actually recognised, maybe 3 with Solidarity. So there are about 17 registered Scottish political parties, but in our Parliament there are only 2 recognized Scottish political parties. The other 3 parties are what I call cuckoos in the nest. They are English registered political parties operating in Scotland. So we have the Conservative and Unionist Party, we have the Labour Party, and we have the Liberal Democrats, and they are not registered with the Electoral Commission as Scottish parties. They're all registered in London, and they're not even registered as UK parties or British parties. They are registered as English parties.
That's
Political
interesting.
parties have to register where they are based, right? The SNP and the Scottish Greens are based in Scotland. The other 3 parties in our Parliament are based in London. We get the DUP and Sinn Féin and things like that registered in Northern Ireland as political parties with the electoral, and they're registered as Northern Irish political parties. And the same way, Plaid Cymru and Wales. We all have cuckoos in the nest. Northern Ireland's a wee bit more unique because it is a more uniquely Northern Irish political parties actually in Northern Ireland where they have cuckoos in the nest, as I like to call them. So,
for example, so for example, the STLP is like a Labour Party in Northern Ireland.
Yes, Social Democrat and Labour Party, isn't it? And there's an amalgamation when Labour gets into 8% support in the polls, I believe. The SDL, the Social Democrats and Labour joined up. A bit like when we had the Liberal Democrats, what were they? The Social Liberal Democrats at one point back in the 70s or 80s, they had a split as well, didn't they?
I think so, yeah.
They amalgamated in the, I think it was the late 80s, or they changed their name to Democratic Liberal Party or something like that, and then the DLP wasn't it, and then it split again. Well, anyway, the point is, in Scotland and in our Parliament, we only have 2 Scottish registered parties. We have 3 English registered parties. After independence, that would have to stop right away because they wouldn't be registered as Scottish parties. They wouldn't have any right to stand in Scotland. We'd have our own electoral commission, we'd have our own electoral laws, and they wouldn't be they would have to be split from the UK party and be registered as a Scottish party to be able to participate.
But you would see maybe a conservative type party evolving. You would also see a Labour Socialist Party evolving, perhaps out of the SNP or independent from the SNP. Do you see that happening in independent Scotland?
I would imagine there would be a lot of political parties until the voters polarise behind bigger parties. As I say, I envision that the SNP would disappear after 10 or 15 years as the Broads Church that it is splits back into its natural branches. I mean, we have in the SNP, we have the Socialist group, we have the Conservative group, we have the trade union groups. So it's a really broad party, and we'd expect them all to split off and go after their own interests politically. Yeah.
Okay. We're near the end of this. I just wanted to ask you a couple more questions. What, in your opinion, are the odds of? I know it's not a good thing to speculate on, but the odds of the yes vote winning in a referendum. If a referendum was held maybe tomorrow, do you think it would pass?
If it was held tomorrow, it would be a definite win. But we're looking at a couple of years down the line. We'll get the economy about to be wrecked by Brexit. It's already understrained by COVID, and it's very easy to frighten people. And as we don't have any control over the mainstream media, in fact, Scotland's one of the very few devolved places in the world that's not allowed to send media. In fact, I think it's the only one.
I know there's some issues with the BBC where they're anti-independence. Is that correct?
It's not just that they're anti-independence. The clue is in the name. It's the BBC, right? And then we have the ASTV, which is Scottish Television, which is actually owned outside Scotland. You know, it's like everything else. And you could say it's a franchise at ITV these days. And it's generally ITV programmes that are shown, including programmes and things like that. There are a few wee things like the Scottish STV and a couple of Scottish programmes that they put out, but generally it's ITV. So we don't have control. We don't have control of the media. So, and people are easily frightened. We're about to hit a brick wall here. Economies are about to be crashed. Incomes are about to plummet. And the media could tell us that could get worse under independence, and that could frighten people. So if there's a referendum 2 years down the line, are people going to vote yes? I have no idea, Max. I know I'm going to do my best to make it happen.
Yeah, I feel that the closer it is to Brexit, the better it is for a yes vote. The further away it is from Brexit, the more time maybe the Tories or the Unionists can, in a sense, convince people against it. So I just want to ask sorry, go on.
Every movement has its moment. This particular movement is coming to its moment. September next year, February the year after, if it's not done by then, Max, it's off the table for 20 or 30 years, because every movement has its moment, and this one's getting to its crescendo.
Yeah, you don't want to miss this opportunity. So I just want to finish with one final question. How will ordinary people in Scotland benefit from independence?
We have got vast natural resources which are being exploited by another country, which is the definition of a colony. Scotland's a colony, right? We have vast natural resources: oil, gas, electricity, water, and food production. We are self-sufficient in all these things, and we sell. At this point in time, we don't sell any of these things except for food. The rest is taken from us, free of charge. In fact, if you take electricity, the further away you are from London, you actually have to pay to get your electricity into the grid. That's why Longana had to shut, because the National Grid had changed their pay-in cost from £2 million a year to £4 million a year. That was feeding electricity right across the central belt. But the distance further away you are to England, to London, the more expensive it is to actually pay to put your electricity into the grid. If you take Peterhead, they're nearly £6.6 million a year to actually get their electricity into the grid. So things like electricity, oil, gas, they would have to pay for it. That would bring a wealth to the country. Even though oil is becoming a thing of the past, we have huge, vast natural form of wind and wave. We have a quarter of Europe's coastline.
No, if you think about it like that, yes, it's true.
We have vast amounts of potential in tidal energy. Wind. When we women in the Shetlands and the Orkneys take their kids shopping, and the wind gets up, they tie them to poles outside and fly them like kites to come out the supermarket. That's how much wind we've got, Max. So we have vast natural resources, and the one thing we have got, which is going to become a very, very valuable commodity, is water. And if the climate scientists are right, Scotland's about to get more tepid. At this point in time, we have got 32,000 freshwater lochs and we don't use any of them. There is more water in Loch Ness than what there is in the whole of England. One Loch Ness, has more water, and you can check that out, than the whole of England.
Wow.
England's talking about damming up another one of Wales's beautiful valleys because the southeast is running out of water.
So definitely looks like there are huge opportunities for Scotland going forward as an independent nation, and I think what I'd like. So thanks very much, Davy, for responding to those questions. There's a lot to chew on there. So I'd like to, if it's okay, to open it up to the other people on the chat if they'd like to ask some questions of you, or if we'd like to have it.
One at a time instead of having everybody talking at the same time, right? Anybody's got a question or a comment, put it in the voice channel text chat. Doug's in there first, so Doug comes in first, then Conservator.
So we'll go with Doug first.
Right, Doug, you're on.
All right. Well, I mean, it's just what I've written in the text chat. Really, it was I was curious to learn more about the currency zone, but you're referring to I've been Googling for it and looking up on the website. I can't find links to it, so I just would like to get links to it. Really, read up about it. Sounds interesting.
You can't find links to it. Have you tried the Bank of England website?
Yes.
And it's not there.
I was searching currency zone. I don't know if that's the thing to search for.
Yeah, you should be looking for currency zone. I don't know. I mean, Professor Richard Murphy, who's moved to the London School of Economics up to Durham or something like that, he did a cracking expose on currency zones as well and currency unions.
Right.
This was a big debate back in the 80s when they were, the 90s, when we were talking about joining the euro ourselves and the creation of the euro and the idea of the currency zone and the currency union came up, right? Now, this isn't unknown or no common knowledge that the Bank of England operates a zone and the euro operates a union. It was advised that the European Union at the time operated a sterling-style currency zone. It was all there for everybody to see and read. I'm surprised it's not there on the Bank of England website, to be honest with you, Doug, because pre-2012 it was. A full explanation on how the Bank of England operated was. I haven't been on the Bank of England website since about 2013-14. So I haven't seen how it's been updated, but all of that information was there.
Doug, I don't know if you've heard of the Wayback Machine.
No, not heard of that. Oh, you mean? I think I know what you're talking about. You mean?
I'll post you a link.
Web pages and stuff.
Yeah, it just shows you archived web pages from years ago.
Right.
Well, what I will do is I'll go through my archives, Doug, and on Scottish Affairs, if I can find the stuff that I was when the stuff I was studying back in 2012 and 13, if I can find it in the archives, I will post it onto the Discord Scottish Affairs site. Okay.
That'd be interesting. And with Richard Murphy, I'm familiar with as well. He's quite interesting, so I'll look it up there as well.
Well, you can ask Richard direct. I mean, I speak to Richard regularly, so you can ask that Richard direct about these things, the difference between the currency zone and the currency union, and he'll give you more or less the same explanation that I have.
Yeah. Okay, thanks for that.
Right, Doug. You can stay unmuted. Just let the next person answer the question. And
right, who's next?
That's Conservator.
Hi, Davy, this is Conservator. I'd like to know if or when Scotland has got its independence, will it try to rejoin the EU, and if yes, what will be the will it do it right away, or will it wait a few years?
I would imagine that Scotland would initially join EFTA while it gets itself sorted out. in order to join the EU, but I believe the ambition of the SNP, if it's still around, is to rejoin the EU. I would think the rejoin would be a good idea. When you've got a big aggressive neighbour next door, you need big pals to lean on them on your behalf.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, I really do think that the Scottish people will opt to rejoin the EU as soon as possible. But as we know, under the EU rules, there would have to be a referendum. The people would have to ratify joining. So it's a question for the other side of the independence debate.
You okay with that, Conservator?
Yeah, I didn't know there would have to be a referendum for joining the EU.
Well, that's the EU's rules.
Yeah, I didn't know that. But I'm sure you're right. I was surprised.
Yeah, no, that's the EU's rules. You can't just go along and ask to join. Once you go yourself in a line with the Copenhagen Accords and you're ready to join, you can approach the EU and ask to join, and the EU's rules say that you have to put it to your people in a referendum to make sure they agree to join.
Yeah, okay. Well, that wouldn't be a problem, would it?
I don't think so. I think it was 62%, and actually, I think the last time they asked the Scottish people was 70% said they would like to rejoin the EU, or they don't want to leave the EU. So I would imagine that Scotland would want to join the EU, and I would imagine that the EU would like access to Scotland's assets, especially oil and gas, so they could break free of their dependency on Russia.
Oh, yeah. Okay, thank you.
No problem, mate.
Okay.
I hope you enjoyed that answer.
Yeah, very much.
We'll bring in Rick next.
Hi.
Good to speak
Rick,
to you.
bring Rick.
Davy, I watch a lot of your videos, both you and Gordon. First of all, are you both singing from the same hymn book? Because
No.
I've been trying to find out from watching you both what your own vision would be for the easiest way through this unionist hegemony. Is it going to be via legal route, via the courts, international, domestic, as Gordon seems to be promoting, or are we going to be forced into an unapproved by Westminster referendum just to get past them?
There is no such thing as an unapproved referendum. Scotland already has the power to hold any referendum then. We passed the legislation last year and the Queen signed it into law.
But they're still holding out for a Section 30.
Of course they are, because that way it's easier to get international recognition. But what they're also doing is they're cutting off all avenues to say that the Westminster Parliament is denying democracy and denying international law. Now, I reckon that Section 30 order will be offered with a caveat. That caveat being if you don't win, you take it off the table for 25 years, which would be a breach of another international treaty that we're already signatory to. And that's the Good Friday Agreement, where it's agreed a political generation is 7 years. So once you've asked a question, it can't be asked for another 7 years. That's already international, a recognised international treaty which applies to the 4 nations of the United Kingdom. Because the 4 nations of the United Kingdom, the EU and the United States are signatories to the Good Friday Agreement.
Yeah.
So the answer to the question is, I would reckon that they will give a Section 30 order with caveats, which would be in breach of the Good Friday Agreement, and that could well be part of what they're trying to do with the international, with the internal market bill and breaching international laws, set a precedence. If you bust the Good Friday Agreement, we're on 7 years, we're entitled to a new referendum. If you break that international agreement, then you can kick that into the long grass. England are very short of resources, and they're skint. Scotland has a lot of resources that England needs. Oil, gas, electricity. You've heard this stuff from me before. Oil, gas, electricity, water, human resources, food. England are very dependent on us. If you take the English argument that 60% of your trade goes to England, that says that England needs 60% of what we overproduce.
So do you feel that we're actually going to end up having to go through the international courts to be able to make this progress?
No, I think international pressure on England will see them try and wriggle we'll see them give Section 30 order. You've got to remember, England's already alienated itself. Westminster's already alienated itself to the rest of the world. It's untrusted to the rest of the world whether they break international law or no. This idea that place in there, the mother of Parliament, is a total lie. And the idea that the UK is always upheld international law is also a total lie. Every time a colony's tried to break free, there's been a bloody bloodbath. The most recent one, of course, being Rwanda. Prior to that, of course, we can go all the way back to the Irish struggles, right? It doesn't matter what side of that argument you're on. How the UK treated the people of Ireland was deplorable.
Mm-hmm.
So the UK internationally is no trusted. Well, basically, England is no trusted. You got to remember the flag they fly was rented to Genoa in Italy. The St George's Cross. It's not their flag. They rented it because people didn't trust the Kingdom of England way back then. They still don't. And you imagine the ex-colonies are all going to queue up to get a trade deal with the people that swindled them out of their natural resources, who killed millions of them as they tried to break free. The demands that the ex-colonies, or what we call the Commonwealth, are going to put on the UK or Westminster for trade deals are going to be massive. But the first demand they're going to want is freedom of movement.
Yep, I can see that.
So, the courts, the international courts, I don't know if it's going to progress to that point. As you'll be aware, Martin Keating's has got a case in the courts at the moment, trying to settle the dispute under Section 5 of the 1998 Scotland Act, about Section 30 of the 1998 Scotland Act. It was a silly idea to take it to the courts at this point in time. That should have came to the courts after a denial of a new SNP majority in the Parliament along the road. Because you've got to remember, Westminster doesn't recognise the other independence parties in that Parliament along that road. So if we've got a Green and SNP majority, Westminster has not recognised it. They are specific. They want an SNP majority before they will recognise Scotland's right to choose. So what we have to do next year is get out and make sure the SNP get that majority. No matter how we feel about them and how we feel they're performing, they're the vehicle, we're the driver. It's up to us to get them there.
But I do feel for Martin Keating in the fact that he's actually fighting not just English courts, but the fact that there's an English puppet in the form of the Scottish Advocate General.
Well, that's basically that's on behalf of England. And that is a different story altogether, of course, because the Scottish Advocate General has got a real challenge in his hands to fight Lord Colquhoun, who is, of course, the president of the Inner College of the College of Justices, who is the Lord Protector of Scots law. So, and as we've seen what Lady MacDonald did the other week there, when the Advocate General tried to slow this down and slow it down and slow it down, with the aid of the Scottish Government, I have to say. For good reason, the Scottish Government tried to slow it down. But as we've seen, Lady MacDonald was the winner. She said, no, we'll take this argument to court, let's hear the arguments. They've been trying to kick it into the long grass.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for your answer, mate. That's been really good. I appreciate it so much.
And well.
Okay, and I'll look forward to your next video, mate. Thank you.
I'll be one tomorrow. I'll be up to 2 or 3 this morning reading the Sunak's crap.
Oh, God. God bless you. Somebody's got to.
Well done, Vic. Next person on is Max again. He's got a question.
So I muted myself. So no, I just wanted to ask just a quick question. How would you respond to Keir Starmer, who has suggested a federal UK instead of Scottish independence.
There's your answer, Max. Listen, Max, I'm going to be straight with everybody here. Federalism was put on the table with a vote in 2014. When the Cuckoos in the Nest went into that commission, they phoned their head office in London and they struck down everything. And Scotland ended up with the ability to manipulate tax bands within tax powers we already had and weren't using because it wasn't beneficial to us. Right? The other thing we got out of that Smith Commission was the power of road signs and a VOSA, which is the vehicle inspection groups here in the UK, right? So basically what we got was control of checking heavy goods vehicles and bloody well motorway signs. That's what we got out of the Smith Commission. Federalism was not going to fly in Scotland. We were offered a vow and we got nothing. Federalism is just a vow to give you something later. We call it jam tomorrow here. That's what we call it, jam tomorrow.
I know that Starmer is attempting to push it quite a lot as an alternative, but
Starmer is a liar and he is a fully bought up and paid for member of the British state and the British establishment. Remember, who do you think about this? Head of the Labour Party, the Socialist Party in the UK. Sir, Keir Starmer? A man that went from zero to hero in 6 years. Flat. From nothing in the Labour Party to leader of the Labour Party in 6 years flat. You need the power of the state behind you to be able to do that. And remember, prior to that, he worked for the state. This is the guy that had the Jimmy Savile files and suppressed them. This is the guy that went to Northern Ireland and prosecuted innocent people. People need to know a wee bit more about Starmer's background as a prosecutor and as a lawyer. He is totally owned by the state, and the Labour Party have just been taken over again the same way they were taken over under Tony Blair. The establishment have bought the Labour Party, and the Labour Party are just red Tories. Simple as that.
Yep, absolutely.
We should get a bowler hat man and Phil on this. Okay,
I've seen Enzo and Night Raven typing, so just wait and see if they've got any questions or comments, and we'll open the chat up to everybody. Never mind, they just had a couple of comments. We'll just open the chat up to everybody. Please, don't all talk at once, one at a time. And thanks, Davy, for doing this, by the way.
Thanks a million, Davy.
Oh, listen, I don't expect people to agree with what I have to say, but I hope you enjoyed it. You know, the stuff on the Bank of England and the currency zone and currency union, I'll dig that out. I'll do it because that really is important. Unfortunately, we don't have a mainstream media outlet that could highlight this stuff. I was sent on a mission in 2012. Be quiet. Hey, sent on a mission in 2012 to have a look into all this stuff, and I went on that mission, and that's when in fact, I found the Bank of England very, very helpful. They answered emails and things like that. They had on their website at the time information about how the sterling zone worked. I'm very surprised to hear that that's not still there. In fact, I find it shocking that it's not there.
Do we have anyone else with some questions?
I've unmuted everybody. Everybody can talk now.
I was just going to say, it might have been my Googling. I didn't search sterling zone, I searched currency zone, so maybe that's where I've gone wrong.
Can everybody hear me at the moment?
Yes.
Oh, because I couldn't ask a few minutes ago. Just to clarify, do you think is the union in any way possibly what is it? Now I can't remember the words. But if the Northern Ireland, Scotland, and Wales kicks the England out of the Union, 3-1, and says that okay, you have to fix your things, and then maybe we can have a union again. Is it possible?
No, it's not possible. It's not possible because of the way the UK Parliament set up. England has 550 of the MPs.
Sorry, I interrupt you. Sorry, but when the union was made, I'm going that far. When the union was made, is there any clause in this paper that can say that actually Scotland, Northern Ireland, and Wales? Why Wales is always the last one, is alphabetic, but they could kick out England.
Wales isn't a member of the Union. You've got to start there. Northern Ireland.
You're correct.
Northern Ireland didn't become part of didn't become a UK protectorate or a Union protectorate until 1922. So the Treaty of Union in 1982, which incorporated Northern Ireland, has got nothing to do with the Treaty of Union between Scotland and England. And to get right down here, I say there's nothing in that treaty in 1922 that says you can walk away. That didn't come up until the Good Friday Agreement, I believe.
It's a nice suggestion, Joe.
No, I because I've been talking in this channel for quite many months about the instead of having independence, it's like a Scottish divorce, like that. Let that horrible man go, you know. But okay.
I think I grasp the concept of what you're saying. Do you think we would operate better together as a group if we split as a union and operated as separate countries that had to cooperate with each other? Then yes, the answer to that is yes, because you'd have right intelligent nations in competition with each other, driving each other on. And that would be a better situation than having one nation dominating the other three, which is the situation we're in with the way the UK Parliament set up, where Northern Ireland, Wales and Scotland can get together to vote doing something that England wants, and you cannot vote it down because they have 550 MPs and we only have the other 100.
I'd just like to say to everybody else, a lot of you are muted. You can unmute yourself and just talk away. If you've got a question or a comment or just chat away.
I thank you for that answer. Thank you. I mute myself now.
Well, I hope it satisfied you, the answer.
I have a question regarding independent Scotland's role in the North Sea with the neighbors Norway, Denmark, the Faroe Islands, what's left of the UK, and regarding, for example, access to fish, because that's currently being an issue with the Brexit negotiations, but also regarding defense and security, and the cooperation in, for example, the Nordic Council. Is this something that Scotland could be looking to join alongside, maybe looking towards joining the EU or the EEA?
Yes, it's a very strong push in Scotland to join the Nordic Council, and I believe there's an open invite to an independent Scotland to join the Nordic Council. The fisheries and things like that, well, Scotland has got, I think we've got a reasonable history of being fair. So I believe that these things should be worked out fairly and in everybody's interest. There's enough in the North Sea to feed everybody. If we manage the stocks correctly.
Thank you.
Davy.
Aye.
Listen, I've got a couple of questions, mate. I can't remember if it was yourself or Gordon, right, who stated that they're banging on about the amount of debt we've got. That that isn't British debt, it's English debt, right? Seemingly we've got to pay some of England's debt, and that's how we don't get as much back
And
after tax.
in the Treaty of Union, it is accepted by the Scottish Parliament for access to the Empire that they will take on a share of debt. All right, it's per capita, it's in the treaty, and we've lived by it. But as the debts get out of hand, as England has been at war with almost everybody, then it's been disproportionate. The amount of money they borrow and spend in England that we're expected to pay a share of. How it works is they call it out of an issue of national importance, right? So if we take the Queensferry crossing, it was deemed not to be of national importance, so there was no input into paying for it by Westminster. But if we take HS2, the railway line that's going to run from London to Birmingham, then that's deemed to be of national importance, so Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland will pay a share of that. And that's how the debts accrue. Right, we have an agreement to pay. The minute the union is terminated, that agreement to pay ends. And that's why people like Professor Richard Murphy says when assets are weighed up and contributions are weighed up, then Scotland will probably put money as opposed to owing money.
Right, well, let's clear that up. In regards to the nuclear weapons, how much, what's the word I'm looking for? How much a threat would that be to us if they decide to use it against us? Not the actual firing of the nuclear weapons, but as in saying you owe us money for these nuclear weapons.
That's not even an argument, to be honest with you. We're looking at reparation for getting rid of the defunct subs that are lying in port through in Scotland. And we're looking for reparation for the damage that's been done up the west coast by nuclear discharges from these subs. And you got to remember, there are 14 to 27. They're not quite sure because the Ministry of Defence have lost a few. There's a few vanguards and things like that. They don't know what happened to them. That are all lying about Scotland with their nuclear reactors, and I think there's 7 at Rosyth. They've been lying there for many years with their nuclear reactors still in them, decomposing, and the Firth of Forth. So we're not looking at cost for us getting rid of them. We're looking at cost and for them to clean up the mess they've left behind.
Good. Well, that's answered me anyway, so it's interesting because I used to work up and put my hand up here, but it's always been a sort of bugbear where they use that against us.
Aye, the 5,000 odd jobs and things like that.
Aye.
See, when you look at it, there's only 550 jobs, and that includes the supply chain. The Ministry of Defence have the supply chain, things like that, sort of do it for themselves. Right? Private contractors at Coalport and at Fast Lane, there's only 550 of them. The rest of them are military personnel. The argument is, once they get rid of that lot, we should base our Navy out of the west coast of Scotland. And that would be the right place to put it, because Scotland has access to the northwest passage through the Arctic, which is opening up because, as we know, the ice fields are melting. So strategically, Scotland's a very important place, as is Greenland, as is Norway, Denmark, Iceland, things like that. We are all the gateway to the Northwest Passage, and strategically worldwide, that's going to be very important. So when it comes to things like that, Scotland will be looked upon as an asset to organisations like NATO. So, there's bigger geopolitical things on the go here than what most of us think about most of the time.
Well, thanks, Davey. Thanks for putting my mind at ease, as we say.
I don't know about ease, mate, but I know my answers don't sound very sophisticated, but the essence of them are generally correct.
Can I
You know,
actually? I have to say the opposite. You're like an oracle. You know a lot of things about independence, about Scottish history, about the mechanisms, and from economic to political. So I think they're anything but unsophisticated.
oh, thanks, Max. I think I just sound like a wee guy from Glasgow that's read a lot.
You do sound like a wee guy for Glasgow.
I would be suspicious if you would sound like Jacob Rees-Mogg.
Absolutely.
I don't think I have the capability to be that dishonest.
I unmute myself. Oh my God.
Okay.
Davey, that's just in that sense just the stick that the English use to beat us with every time we have a decent argument.
You will find that many people here, and you've heard us during the chats comment on the fact that Jacob Rees-Mogg has the most disgusting type of accent or intonation and general worldview than I have witnessed in a long time.
One of the things that really impresses me with Jacob Rees-Mogg and Boris Johnson is to fool the people with some clever language. You know, throwing a wee bit of Latin and the English are laughing up. I don't understand it. You know, I really don't get it. But our biggest problem, to get back to the biggest problem that Scotland faced in the fight to independence, is the mainstream media. Because we don't have our own media, this sort of stuff that we're doing tonight, it goes back to something Kevin Gibney said to me years ago when he set up Independence Live, and that was, it's time to bypass the media, it's time to become the media. You know, and talk to people in their own language. You know, studying all these. I mean, the first thing that popped up in my inbox after Sunak's review today, spending review, was the Fraser Islander Institute breakdown of it. That hit me within about an hour, and they use flowery language the same way government that does. But I tend to just grab the headline figures and break it down into something I can put out tomorrow in my blog that people will understand. You know, things like capital spending dropping just when we need capital spending. You know, this sort of thing. It's turning that into something that people understand, like saying that it means that they're going to cut the money for building roads or building houses or building schools, that sort of thing. You know, it's all about reading the gobbledygook and turning it into something you can tell people. You know, what the mainstream media is very good at is using the gobbledygook of what they call it, jargon. You know, legalese, whatever you want to call it. It's about taking it out of that concept and telling your pals what it actually means.
You need more of that. Need more people to break it down and explain it the way it really
you do
is.
Wonderfully well in your videos, Max. You do it absolutely wonderfully in your videos, I have to say. You know, especially when you're doing the ones on the Commons debates and things like that. You break it down. You say, "Oh, hold on a minute, that doesn't make sense because he said, she said." You know, that's the sort of thing that we need to get to people. You know.
That's great.
Right. I think that's probably about enough tonight. What I'll do is I'll drag Davy and Max over to another channel to talk about how they think it's went and everything like that, and then they can come back if they want. Everybody else is welcome to stay and chat.
That's great. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Davy, and thanks a lot to everyone who came on tonight.
Thanks, lads.
Thank you.
It was informative.
Have a great day.
Yeah, thank you, David.
Great night, I mean.
Cheers, Max. Cheers, Davy.
Cheers.
Cheers.